Hey everybody, what's up? Welcome to Coshun Cast, episode 3. Craig Coshun, James Stewart on board with you. How you doing, James?
Doing well, man. Doing well. Just getting ready for the weekend.
Yeah, for sure.
With the kids.
Yeah, there's a lot of things happening. That's for sure. We got the Bucks are on a little bit of a roll here. There's about as much Packer news as you can imagine, and we got some hot stove stuff with the Brewers to talk about too a little bit here. A lot of awards coming out and rumors of trades swirling and whatnot. But this is our third Coshun Cast, and the good news is, James, we're starting to spread our wings out a little bit, grow some branches to where we're available. Can you take us through it, because you're our tech guy?
I don't know if I'd go as far to say tech guy, but yeah, I'm working on it. Yeah, we're growing. We're available on YouTube. We're available on Anchor and Spotify, and I'm currently working on Google Podcasts and Apple Podcasts. So stay tuned. We'll be everywhere you're looking for us. So growing fast.
Yep. Good news is you can watch and play, or you can just listen and play, or walk and do your stuff, or whatever it is, however you tune it in. So
yeah, if you don't want to look at us, you can just listen to us.
Yeah, not too many people really want to look at us anyway. I'm not sure what we're even doing on here, but anyway. So let's start out with the Bucks. They came up with another big win on the road. So they had back-to-backs on the road. They're on a 5-game road trip, Tuesday in Philly. I'm not sure why they struggled so much against such a depleted roster, but winning on the road certainly is not easy. And then I thought it was an impressive win against the Knicks, who were mostly fully loaded for their game. And we know the Bucks aren't fully loaded. They're still going through some injuries. But 24-point lead. Yeah, on the road in the NBA, you're going to lose that lead, and they lost the 24 points, but they never fell behind, which is good. And then they had a big fourth quarter. So I think just if I'm looking at this, I think we're seeing this team start to gel a little bit, which makes me comfortable because I want them to win, and then it makes me uncomfortable because some of their primetime players who haven't played are going to be coming back, at some point here, and we need them and stuff. But that's kind of what I'm seeing right now. How about on your end?
I mean, I think you got to look at it two ways. Like, if you look at the 2-game winning streak, yes, Philly was depleted with no Embiid, no Tobias Harris, but as we know, because we're going through it, that's not an excuse. You got to play the games in front of you and win. It's their second back-to-back wins of the season, which is encouraging. If they can take down Boston next, it'll be their first 3-game win streak of the season. But to me, I think the encouraging thing is that we haven't heard really any excuses from the team. We, as fans, all know that they're depleted, and we all think we know why they're losing and this and that. But the team itself has been straightforward. And like you said, we are kind of seeing guys step up. We've seen huge games from Grayson. We've seen the Philly game. Portis had a good game. Grayson had a good game last night. Connaughton. So it's kind of like that double-edged sword, which I think you were alluding to, is that these guys who potentially could be role players are getting that spotlight and getting the shots and getting. I mean, Grayson's firing up a good amount of shots, and we know Pat's pretty much since the playoffs. If Pat feels like he's open, he shoots it. He's turned into that guy kind of that, whether depending on who's injured or whatnot, either a starter or bench guy, his usage isn't necessarily changing. It feels like he's, especially with their kind of let it fly attitude, which I think is interesting. But the good thing is that I feel like both of these guys kind of know, specifically Grayson and Pat, know their role when Chris comes back, because Chris is obviously going to be a focal point with Giannis. And it'll be nice to see how they kind of work that all back in. Same with Lopez. Like those guys, Chris and Lopez are going to come in and resume their roles. There's no question about that. You know what I mean? There's no question about shot selection or anything like that. When those guys get back, they are back in their roles. So we'll see how Grayson and Pat kind of readjust to that. But I think, kind of like I was saying with Pat, like from the playoffs, I'm not necessarily worried about him because Pat's going to do what Pat does. And he's going to bring energy. He's going to shoot threes, and he's going to get you kind of hustle baskets, hustle defense, etc. But Grayson's only played one game with the championship Milwaukee Bucks. You know what I mean? Like he's basically
one of the season.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So he's been he knows how to work with Giannis. So, and Drew kind of coming in too, but when Chris and Brooke and that whole five comes back, it'll be interesting to see what happens then.
I think, if I look at this against the Knicks, the Bucks made 26 3-pointers. I think, and they did it on the road. So I think we're seeing the potential that we saw, in the last year or two, where they're going to get into the 20. I call it the 23-point club. You get into that, James, and you're winning games.
Right.
And so they had 26 last night, even though it was tight and they needed a bunch in that fourth quarter. They got it. They made 6 threes in the final 4 minutes of the game. I mean, that's pretty doggone impressive. Right. And, we're seeing, I think I want to extend the conversation on both Grayson Allen and Pat Connaughton. And I'm going to go with Connaughton first here since I brought up the fourth quarter. In the Bucks' 6 wins in the fourth quarter, he is 13 for 19 on 3-pointers in the 6 wins. And that's just the fourth quarter.
Right.
So this guy is clearly becoming clutch. And I think a point that I want to make too, that you had made, that we're starting to see, more of the championship style Pat Connaughton now. I think what happens sometimes when you're lucky enough, fortunate enough to still let your game develop through a championship run like he did. I mean, he's a different guy now.
Right.
I mean, I think during the regular season, for sure, in the 2 or 3 years he's been here, he's been a guy where I'm not so sure if I should shoot this ball here or maybe drive or pass. I know I can shoot, but, to me right now, what we're seeing, and it stems back from the championship run, there's no more questions in his head. He's not hesitating. He knows if the ball's in his hands, he knows what he's going to do with it. And if he's open for 3, he's going to shoot the 3. And he is, right now he's becoming incredibly deadly at that point. But I think that's the cool thing about winning a championship, that, we all see a team win a championship. We don't see our local team win a championship. We're all just enthralled by the whole thing and captivated by it.
Yeah.
But you see why they won it now, and you see why they're in another good position for a few years to come here to win another one. It's because of the development that has happened. I think we're seeing it with Giannis as well. I think the 1-2 punch Giannis and Grayson Allen are becoming is pretty incredible. I mean, Grayson Allen is way better than advertised, and to me has won any trade in the NBA up until now since last year. I mean, that was an incredible move for this team.
And you kind of look at, like, we all kind of hear the stories and the lore around superstars being unlocked by championships and kind of knowing that, like, you are the man. You can kind of do what you want in this league. But I think we kind of forget that, like, it's possible that the entire team kind of feels like that. You know what I mean? And, like, are we going to see 15 points from Pat Connaughton in the fourth quarter often? Are we going to see him splash 5 threes in the fourth quarter often? Probably not. But the fact that he and his team have the confidence in him to take those shots is a game changer. Giannis said it earlier, that he at times felt like he had the ball and 4 guys were watching him, or 9 guys were watching him if you include the defense. that's not that can't happen if guys like Pat Connaughton and Grayson Allen, and even Semi Ojale hitting a couple threes, or Bobby, when those guys feel like they can take those shots and they can make those plays, that has to take a ton of weight off of Giannis's shoulders and just open up their offense as opposed to just, all right, Giannis, go get us a bucket. Like, I think that was kind of, the Brooklyn series with KD going nuts like that. It was awesome to watch, right? But we all knew what he was going to do. We all knew where the ball was going. We all knew what was going to happen. So in this instance, like, Giannis isn't that kind of shooter. He's just not. It's hard for a post player or a slasher to just take over a fourth quarter if you don't have to worry about anyone else. So if they can spread it like that, that will allow him more one-on-ones, or even, double coverage as opposed to triple and building walls. You know what I mean?
Right. And I think we saw that from the Knicks last night several times. I mean, I made the observation that Giannis was fouled a lot, so far away from the basket it wasn't even funny. Whether he was double teamed or just that over aggressive play the Knicks threw in the last couple of minutes of the third quarter and then extended that into the fourth quarter. I mean, I get it. You want to be aggressive. You want to be physical a little bit. But, I question, what that does for if you're defending Giannis, what that really does for you 20 to 25 feet away from the hoop. All it does is count up fouls, and then all of a sudden you're sending him to the foul line eventually. And he's proven this year he's knocking some free throws down. But it is interesting, the fact too that you brought up, the whole KD thing. You know what's going to happen when the ball's in his hands. I think what makes Giannis different than a guy like KD is he's still willing to pass the ball, very willing to figure out a way to look for, his open shooter. We did something during our pregame yesterday that Novak did, and that's if the ball can see you, it's gonna get to you.
Right.
The ball can't see you. The ball is not. And there's so many instances where Giannis is facing a double or a triple, and this is what Grayson Allen and Pat Connaughton have been able to do. They've been able to get in his vision. Not his blind side, like we've seen in the past, a little bit of the lost offense. That's not happening anymore. And this is why this team won a championship last year and is going to get there this year. I mean, they just got to clear some hurdles. We all understand that. But I think that's the good part. Giannis had 3 points and 4 assists in the first half yesterday. I mean, when's the last time you saw him have more assists than points in a half? And then he ends up with 15, 15, 8. A couple of blocks and a steal. I mean, that's a night's work right there, man.
And that's the thing is, like, for a superstar, you would think coming into half with, single digit points, they should be losing by a lot.
Right.
But the difference, right. That's the thing. And he preaches that he's going to give the ball to these guys and they have to get their open shots. And it's good to see that, and there's going to be times where he kind of lives and dies by that, where if the guys are having an off night and we lose because, shots aren't falling, so be it. That's the way they want to play. They want the ball to move. They want everyone to let it fly. And it's paying off. It paid off last year, obviously. But you kind of, it's interesting to me because one of the things I heard him say a couple of days ago was how he compared playing with Grayson Allen and what he's seen so far. And he compared it to playing with Kyle Korver. Not necessarily like the sharpshooter aspect of it, but the way that Grayson moves. Yeah. And he was kind of, there's a lot of guys in the league where you kind of know where they're going to be, right? And that, or the offense tells you he's going to be in the corner. So it gives me a lot of kind of hope for the future to see like what they're already doing, and to know that he has to learn, Giannis specifically, when he's driving and spinning into traffic, if that ball is going to come out, he has to learn where Grayson likes to move. And the fact that this early into the season, clearly he has an idea of where he is kind of a good sign for me. And we'll see kind of when Chris gets back too. But kind of like I said, this is the offense that they want to play. So I don't necessarily feel like when Chris gets back and Brooke gets back, those shots are going to go away. Like I still think Grayson's going to get up a healthy number of shots. Same with Pat, just because that's the way that they play, which is good. You know, we talked about, we'll see what happens once these guys kind of develop into these spotlight roles when they try to bring spotlight players back in. But they're outside of Giannis, their offense really isn't built on a spotlight. You know, Chris, there's so many games where, you know, we've been together and watching these games and look up and we're like, when did Chris score 20?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't remember a stretch of him scoring 10 straight or, you know, whatever it was. Like he can do that, but there's so many games where he's 6 points a quarter, you know, 2 shots a quarter. Next thing you know, he's got 24 points. And that's where they, I think, have their most successes, that when you need them to do it, because we saw it in the playoffs, when you need Chris to take over, he can do it, but that's not how they play. And it's I think that's been the thing that has allowed them to have the wins that they do, is that they aren't this spotlight heavy team outside of Giannis. And that's only because Giannis doesn't necessarily shoot and spot up, and you know what I mean? Like he's a slasher, he's going to the hoop. So there's going to be some spotlight aspect in that. And he's pretty ball dominant as far as the team goes. But yeah, it's all been good, I think. And I mentioned it earlier, just Semi Ojeleye. I'm not expecting him to be this 3-point sharpshooter, but it was good to see him hit a couple shots and be not afraid to take them too. You know, like that's their offense and they need it.
Well, I mean, we can just ask ourselves the question: who would be on this team and couldn't shoot a 3?
Right.
I mean, I can't think of a soul on this team who can't shoot a 3.
Right. I mean, a couple of years ago, they turned Brooke Lopez.
Years ago, it's like, stop shooting the 3.
Right. But even when Robin came, he's not a 3-point shooter. But hey, you're going to shoot a couple of threes because that's what we do. You know?
Right. And, you know, at some point, someone's going to lose their touch. And last year, I had wondered if Brooke had lost his touch a little bit. I mean, he had a pretty good stretch during the season where things just weren't falling. But I give him a lot of credit. You know, they worked it inside to him, and he looked like a true old-fashioned center at times, which begs this next topic. He's been out, obviously, since game 1. Bucks have only said that it's just continuing back issues. We see he's traveling with the team. We see him a lot on the bench. He looks good. He looks normal. I know that he's doing some things, you know, why this team practices, but they've decided to hold him out of games at this point. I know a lot of people are like, when's he coming back? You know, what's the real story? Well, that's up to the Bucks to reveal at this point. They certainly could use him, which I think, you know, lends the question of, you know, is there going to be some backup help in that center spot? Because we know Giannis would prefer not to play the 5 a lot, and maybe it's not necessary at all times. I get that too, but you know, what are we seeing out of the depth of this bench as these guys try to get, you know, a little healthier, you know, whether it's Ojeleye, Bobby Portis has had some big games, but I'll be honest with you, as he works his way back, he's had big games in a half.
Right.
You know, like last night he had, I think he had 16 points in the first half. He had 1 in the second half, had no rebounds in the second half. So it's just stuff like that, like trying to get a little consistency. And it's, you know, it's easy for me to look at his numbers and pinpoint, but you wonder if down the road, if that's not something, you know, if the Bucks can make any moves Do they trade anybody on this roster right now? Is Dante once was a target? We know that before beginning of last year. When he's healthy and can come back, will he be another target since they signed Grayson Allen, extended him 2 years beyond this one? I mean, these are interesting things to think about.
Right.
And every NBA team is going to have options at some point, that's for sure. And we know John Horst is pretty doggone creative.
I mean, the good thing to me is that Brook is there. I don't know anything, but the fact that he's there and traveling with the team kind of gives me a little bit of hope, because you would think if it was that bad of an injury, they'd shut him down. And
right.
Wouldn't, especially with all the COVID stuff, he wouldn't necessarily even need to travel.
Right.
But you look at Bobby and Semi and even to a much smaller degree, Mamu. These guys aren't centers. These guys aren't big. These aren't the bruisers. They're physical players, but they're not. And it was very interesting to me. The Sixers game, I was expecting them to force Giannis to play center by feeding Drummond. Because if Drummond's out there just dominating Bobby and dominating Semi, they don't really have a choice. Giannis, you got to go over there. You know what I mean? And they really didn't do that. So that, I think they're going to get by for as long as they can until teams start forcing Giannis into that center role. I mean, even the Knicks game, Robinson he's a good center, but he's not the size of like a Drummond. You know what I mean? Or I guess there's not necessarily that many massive imposing centers right now, but there's enough of them. Even like the Jazz and Rudy Gobert, like Giannis was still allowed to play for and float a little bit in that game as well. But obviously now this is a long ways away, but come playoff time, if this were to still be an issue, Giannis would have to play center because the game slows down, et cetera, et cetera. Right now, I think regular season, there's still a little bit of freedom to kind of wait and see what happens. And obviously, if it goes, much longer, they're going to have to do something because it just, if only for the fact that Giannis is much more effective as a whole, not playing center.
Well, and I think too, I think another point that you're making too is I have to turn my heat off because it's loud in here. Sorry about that. I think another point you're making too about the whole center thing in playoff time versus regular season. I mean, they're facing different teams every night. You don't necessarily have to worry about it. In fact, maybe for the large part of it, they're not worrying about it at all, and that's why they're making sure whatever Lopez is going through with his back, it's going to be, they're going to bring him back at 100%. There's just, it's insane to think in the month of November if somebody is having the slightest of issues with something that is so critical that you'd be messing with it.
Right. And that's the thing. It's not why they're losing. The fact that they're small is not why they're losing. So, or they were, the 6 games that they lost. That's not why. So, yes, it's something that needs to be addressed and you want to fix, but it's not like critical issue number 1. You know what I mean? Right. They were shooting bad for a lot of these games, and they just haven't played this group, without Brook, without Bobby for a lot of it, without Chris. They haven't played together, and that also is not your championship team. You know what I mean? Like that starting lineup was comprised of 4 guys you want as role players. So yeah, they're going to lose a couple games. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, they're in good shape. I mean, they're back to 500. They've got Boston on Friday night, and they've got Atlanta on Sunday. Then a couple of days to rest up at home, and it's a big road trip. I mean, they got to go to the White House. They're 11 games between 11 days between home games.
Yeah.
So this is this is kind of an early season test a little bit for a team that wasn't playing real well when the road trip started. Let's get some mojo back at home where they've lost 4 in a row and stuff like that, and take it one step at a time. I've said this since the beginning. The NBA, I'm just focusing on the Bucks here. They're not going to start playing for real in the heart of hearts until January, February because of the off season. So they'll get there.
And that's the thing. Like the moniker is always like the NBA doesn't start until Christmas, right?
Yeah.
And take a short off season on top of that, and then 2 of your guys are in, go play in the Olympics. Like there's a lot of things going on, and before we kind of feel like the sky is falling, look around the rest of the NBA. Like we're not the only team dealing with injuries. We just played Philly, no Embiid,
or COVID for that matter.
Yeah, no Tobias Harris, no Ben Simmons. We're going to go to Boston, and I believe that Jaylen Brown is still out with a hamstring issue. So we're not no Kyrie. We've no LeBron for quite some time now. Like this isn't a Milwaukee problem. This is the NBA, and it's early. Like I think that because we haven't been at the point for so long as a franchise, we haven't been at the point where we pretty much know we're a playoff team, and we pretty much know we're a top 3 team in the East, right? Like those are things that we're not necessarily questioning. So as a team, do you think the Lakers are worried right now? No. LeBron, take a rest. We'll be fine. We have LeBron. He'll be back. We'll get back. We're good. And maybe that is some of the stuff that's going on with Brook. Maybe he is close to playing, and it's like, well, you know what? We need you in a couple months. So let's make sure that you're good right now. Take our time. We'll get through this. And once everyone's healthy, cream will rise to the top, as it's supposed to. So I think as a fan base, we look at it and we're like, oh my God, what's going on? Why are we losing? We're supposed to be the best. What? Relax. These guys have a different mindset of how this season plays out now. They don't have anything to prove anymore. You know what I mean? They're not running out there every day saying we have to win every single game. They obviously want to win every game, but they're not going out there thinking we got to beat Charlotte on Tuesday in November. You know what I mean? We're not in that space anymore, I don't think.
I think every game, once it gets underway and once they start playing and hit it hard, they know at one point that they can put their foot on the gas pedal, or if they need to put their foot on the brake. Right. I just think, if you cover the team and you see the team every day like we do too, we get that. Last night was another great indication. Big lead. The Knicks are going to come back. A home team is going to come back at you. It's just how they're going to do it. And I think it was a great test that they passed yesterday, because I don't think a lot of teams would have gone absolutely balls out with the energy that the Knicks did for as long a stretch of time from the end of the third quarter into the fourth quarter. I mean, they were going to run out of gas.
Right.
But it's not like the Bucks said they're going to run out. I mean, they know. I mean, they get it. So,
and I think that's kind of the interesting part is you mentioned like it's a different test. It is like the Knicks specifically. The Knicks face a different test facing us than we do them. Specifically, our test is to win while we're hurt and while all this kind of stuff is going around. But the Knicks are like looked at as an emerging team. They face the test of we have to beat these good teams to remind everyone in the league that we're for real.
Yeah.
We don't have everyone knows we're for real. Giannis is the second, I believe, still the second leading scorer in the league. We're not in the same headspace.
No. Nope. And when you're trying to prove something to you tend to maybe get out of your what you normally do. And right. I think last night we saw that a little bit, but like you said, you're going against the champs too. So they're just going to see that. So, All right, let's talk. Let's shift a little bit here and talk about our other hometown team, the Brewers, for a bit. Just a little hot stove action, and then we'll talk a little bit of Packers before we're done here. A few things on the slate for the Brewers. Congrats to Josh Hader, reliever of the year. Third time that he's won that in the last 4 years. The fourth straight year the Brewers have won it because Devin Williams got it last year. Which is kind of an interesting segue into this because now it's off season and it's arbitration time. Who's eligible for big raises? And Josh is in line for another big raise here. He's going to be predicted to make in the $10 million a year range. And they've got Williams, the closer in the waiting, which is obviously going to open the door for trade talks on Hader again,
right?
And what the team can bring in. And I think just like last year, James, it's an interesting topic. How much money do you want to spend on a closer? But we all know how good this guy is.
Right.
If he wasn't arbitration eligible anymore and he was a free agent, he'd be making $20 million a year out there, if not more. And so you get him at 10, I think you definitely find a way to keep him on your team. If you're really going for it, there's a lot of inadequacies right now that they have to overcome offensively for them to mess with an all-star pitching staff.
Right. And with Devin Williams, personally, I would love to see him, at least 1-2 more years kind of really in that eighth inning role. Unfortunately he broke his hand, and we can talk about off the field maturity or whatever, but it's kind of like you were saying, if he were a free agent, you'd be looking at 20 million. And so you kind of almost have to look at it like, if it's only 10, you get him at half price and you got to hold on kind of as long as you can. You know what I mean? Yeah. We understand that once these guys kind of get that free agent opportunity, a lot of that takes Milwaukee out of the equation. So you do got to hold on to guys as long as you can. And he's good. He's amazing. The guy's stacking awards. So you would think that even still Devin Williams can kind of learn from that. And if that is the eventual path that Hader leaves and Devin Williams becomes a closer, you would think sitting behind, a 3-time reliever of the year and learning from that is pretty good.
Yeah. Let's face it, he's one of a kind right now in the league. There's just not another guy like him right now.
Yeah.
And, there are some guys that are close. I get it. But right now he's the elite closer in all of baseball, in my opinion, and has been for, several years here now, and has nothing but, a bright future yet as he, hits his peak in his career. I also think, if you look at another thing the Brewers did is decline offering Avi Garcia their end of their mutual offer here to go for 22 to keep him here. And by doing so, they're saving themselves about $18 million of what he would have earned if they would agree to stay here. So, to me you're giving up your best offensive player last year from beginning to end. He was the most consistent Brewer from opening day on. And that's an interesting take there because it does free up money to do something with keeping a guy like Hader here.
Right.
Corbin Burns is arbitration eligible. Brandon Woodruff is. You're talking about 3-year all-star out of your 4 all-stars for your pitchers that you want to keep here for, and keep them happy, put them in a position where, you could potentially extend offers to these guys, put them in a position. I still say this, in order for their offense to get better, they may have to explore trading one of these frontline guys.
Right.
And ones, it's easy to say it's Hader, but who knows if it wouldn't be Woodruff or one of the newbies coming up, and Hauser or something like that. You just don't know at this point, but money's going to be tight because that veteran outfield they have right now is eating up a lot of their cash. And they've got some guys that that they just have to turn around offensively. And we know in Yelich and Hira's one too. And I think the other thing, James, by not extending Garcia, I think it opens up the door, obviously, for Tyrone Taylor, but I think it opens up the door. They were hinting around that they might send Keston Hira out there. And I would imagine if he watched it all, what Gavin Lux did in the last month of the season for the Dodgers, our Kenosha kid, he went to the outfield for the first time ever.
Right.
He had a critical pennant run and somehow made it happen because his bat was alive.
Right.
And
that's
what we need back from Hira.
I don't know, but I would assume a move to the outfield is a bit easier than a move to first base. Obviously, once you get to the outfield, you start talking about arm strength. But I think, like you were saying with Tyrone Taylor, I think that's the obvious slide in because I think he's had a lot of big moments.
Yes.
And obviously, he's got the power. He's got the speed. But yeah, it's a perfect situation to kind of reevaluate and give Keston Hira a different look, a different, going into the season kind of with let's just put the first base thing and last year to bed and move on and let's go from here. At some point, every kid has played the outfield. So, you know what I mean? It's not and I guess I don't know. I'm not a major league outfielder, but I would just assume that that's an easier transition.
Well, I mean, let's face it, the ball's not coming to you as much as it's coming to you at first base. You're basically the catcher number 2 over there, your receiver.
Right.
And then you have to field your position as well. And certainly I'd never say any position is easy to play. I laugh when guys say, I'll go over to first base. I can say that. Guess what? For the last 10 years, we've struggled to see guys succeed over there. And so, I say take them out of that mix unless it's, you're pressed into duty that way. Give them a chance back at second base when, Colton Wong needs a day potentially, see how that sets up and put him in that outfield mix.
Yeah.
I mean, Kane's going to need to stay. Someone's going to get injured, that type of thing. And if he can get his bat back, man, you'll find a spot for that bat.
And that's the thing is, like, you got to remember that, like you were saying, Kane might need a day. Yelich will need a day. He can play a little bit of second base. This might be a perfect opportunity for him to kind of get back into the swing of things and get his swing back as a utility player, where he doesn't necessarily have that everyday thing. And whoever needs a day, Tyrone can play all 3 outfield. So that kind of allows him to also, if they just want to put him in right and that's the only outfield position he's going to play, they have that ability because of the fact that Tyrone can play everywhere, and it's, to me, I think it's, we were talking about this a while ago, that the Brewers have kind of went through this swing of 10 years ago, we were an offensive team and we didn't have the pitching. Now we have the pitching and the offense is struggling. So, it'll be interesting to see what their plans are, because obviously Garcia is a big bat to lose, but they've got pieces kind of coming up, and we'll see how they fit in.
Yep. The other thing, I don't know how much I really want to get into this because it's just one of these things is the Mets now apparently have done their thing cleaning house in their front office, and they can't have David Stearns this year, but they're now targeting supposedly for 2023. So, I mean, I'm not sure how much we want to talk about that, but it's just very interesting how the connection is going to remain out there in the public that the Mets want David Stearns to be their president of baseball operations, as he has done here so successfully in Milwaukee with Matt Arnold. Matt Arnold was rumored to be there as a candidate as well. He's staying here. So you have to wonder if pieces aren't in place maybe for both teams in 2 years. I don't know. Stearns depart. He's got all the ties to the Mets and out east. And, you know, then do you elevate Matt Arnold to keep him here? Very interesting times.
I think the really the only thing that you can kind of hope for is that that Stearns has built a lasting culture. So whatever move ends up being making, and if it's Matt Arnold being moved up or Stearns staying, whatever move happens, the culture here since he's gotten here has been good. So you would just kind of hope that kind of filters down and the same kind of ideas and moves are made, because it's hard. You know, you have to understand if a guy has ties to a team and he wants to go to the Mets, it's unfortunate, or could be unfortunate, but you know, these are all still, these relationships are all kind of built. And we have to remember that, like, Stearns had a whole history before he got here of you know, promise and whatnot. So you can't really be too surprised when these guys go somewhere, flourish, and then their old buddies start calling them back. You know, it's just kind of the way it is.
Yep. All right, real quick on the Packers. We know 12's coming back Sunday from his COVID fiasco. Good for him. But the big storyline here that we don't know if it's going to happen or not is Odell Beckham Jr. has the Packers on his short list, and there had been reports out midweek that the Packers have extended an offer for a veteran minimum, which you would expect nothing more than that.
Right.
The Browns are picking up the tab. They let him go, and nobody picked him up in waivers. So, you know, that's all you need to sign this guy. Your thoughts, because I'm not completely sold on him because he hadn't done much the last couple of years except gripe and bitch and complain and call a lot of balls. So a lot of people think that if he's here, he's the number 2 receiver.
Well, I mean, one, you have to look at, he's got to be a number 2 receiver right now would be Lazard, I would assume. So I would think that just based off of what we have seen from him, if he could reach anywhere near what he was in New York, he walks in as the number 2. I don't think Devontae's got no worries. But if you put those guys, Devontae, OBJ, Lazard, Cobb, potentially MVS whenever he comes back, that's a pretty dangerous 5 wide.
I agree.
And
I agree.
Aaron has to be the best quarterback that he would have ever played with. You know what I mean? Like it. So even if he is a step slower or this or that, he still garners attention. I'm assuming he can still catch the ball and put into an environment where he will get the ball. You would think it would be better. You also have to look at it like, to me, it's a lot. Now, he hasn't had the issues that, let's say, Antonio Brown had. Like, he's obviously not that much of a headache. But look what Antonio Brown was able to do. He went to the Raiders, same issues, right? All the same problems. He's still a headache. When he got to Tampa Bay, he looked at Tom Brady and was like, all right, I'm going to shut up. I'm going to do what I need to do.
Yeah.
And he's got a ring and he's still on the team. He got you know what I mean? Like it's, so you would think the guys like that, if the winning is there, then you don't have as much to worry about. And he would get the ball. Like Aaron loves new toys. So they would find a way to get him the ball.
So true. And look, I mean, I'm not pessimistic about this. I would love to see it because I think we've seen this team already make moves on the defensive side. You know, a risk or two, maybe, but they're willing to show their hand that they're going for it. And I think that continues to be, to me, a high priority. And you're talking about a guy who's 29 years old, not like he's 35 and he can't do it anymore. I mean, this guy could potentially land on your team in the future as well. Like you were saying, who knows?
And at one point was known as a really good route runner.
Right. Exactly.
So, I mean, we haven't seen it in Cleveland, but no offense to Baker, but Baker's not Aaron Rodgers.
No.
I mean, we're talking about a completely different level of quarterback skill.
The Packers missed their guy last week in Kansas City. There's no question about that. And, that's apparent at this point. All right, my man, I think that's going to do it for us. You got a parting shot or anything?
No, I think we kind of covered it all. I'm just excited for the weekend. I'm excited to get Aaron back, whatever that means. Hopefully there aren't too many lasting COVID issues, and the big weekend for the Bucks. It's all good and moving.
Yeah, looking forward to it for sure. And we'll be back on next week, and looking forward to some good things talking about our teams from the state of Wisconsin. James Stewart, our premier producer. This is Craig Coshun. Thanks for watching Coshuncast.